All right, everybody, welcome back to the Move podcast, brought to you by OURA Ring. I'm Lance Armstrong, sitting next to J.B. Hager, who's sitting next to George Hincapie. The OURA Ring is the smartest, let's just call it health tracking device on the market. I'm absolutely, look at this thing, folks, absolutely obsessed with this thing. Full disclosure, we are investors in this company, but I think that speaks to just how bullish we are with them. Get your sleep score, your activity score, and your recovery score. All these other key data points and metrics, body temp, movement, sleep cycles, respiratory rate, really just kind of lets you know. And you know what? I slept like a rock last night, Georgie, and I forgot to put the damn thing on. So I would just be so proud to show you my app today and show you how well I slept and how bad you're going to get your ass kicked after this show when we go out for a 3-hour mountain bike ride. But you folks can watch that on one of the mapping apps, or George can tell you all about it tomorrow. But we are talking, sorry, go back. So to get your OURA Ring, here's our flow code. Oh, those are cool. I really like that. Head on over to OURA Ring, OURA ring.com. Start tracking your sleep. Compare with us. Send it in. We'll let you know how you're doing. We are talking about stage 2. Cue our old friend Alain.
Stage 2. Nice au pays to Nice.
Nice au pays to Nice. Wow.
The citizens of Nice are getting quite a show this year.
Today's show also brought to you by PowerDot. We talk about PowerDot every day. After the show yesterday, I was in such a hurry. I had tea time down valley. We had big storms here. Drove down there. It was totally clear. It was perfect. But played hard and played all afternoon, and my back was completely nuked. I had the PowerDot on in the car on the way home. And even, it's the only reason I was able to get out of bed today. It's now fully integrated with Apple Health and Strava, used by top athletes in cycling, the NFL, Major League Baseball, PGA. 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you don't love it, send it back. 20% off for all of our listeners if you go to powerdot.com/themove. The buy code at checkout is THEMOVE. The other cool thing about this crew, and I love this team over there, they've teamed up with Feeding San Diego and Feeding America to donate 40 meals for every PowerDot Duo purchase. powerdot.com/themove. And here's the buy code, the flow code as well. Last one here for a bit. A new supporter of ours, Hammerhead. So this, I love, this is actually the Gen 1 Hammerhead bike computer. Also another company that we've recently backed over at Next Ventures. This is the Karoo 1. George, you got one on your bike. I like to tell people if your grandma's flip phone was the top of the line other device, I won't name any names, the Karoo, especially the Karoo 2, is the iPhone 11. It is that next level. The mapping features, all the other features, the integration with Strava, real life Strava segments. Here's the thing. The Karoo 2, which is just a leaps and bounds better than the Karoo 1, they released an initial batch. It's sold out in 2 hours. So if you go over to hammerhead.io, just get in the queue, right? So this initial batch was so well received and so many people wanted it, they sold out. But don't just, lay down, folks, right?
I think people need to know, too, the mapping on trail systems is incredible.
No, they've done a great job developing the software side of this thing, and it really is. I'm not kidding. It's next level. So go get in the queue there. Make sure you don't miss the Karoo 2. But before the end of the tour, we'll actually have one of the K2s on hand.
My favorite option in that computer is loading the routes beforehand to see the profiles and exactly the turns you need to take, especially when you're out there in the middle of nowhere riding gravel or mountain bike trails.
In fact, you should probably load it up today.
Got it. I got it.
And I'll tell you what to load up, because I'll probably be out of sight and you won't know where to go. So head on over to hammerhead.io to pre-order your K2. All right, so before we talk about, speaking of twos, before we talk about stage 2, we got to talk about yesterday, and George, I'm going to turn it over to you. We saw just an irrational and insane amount of crashes. We knew that there would be carnage. We know all the things we said, right? You have a part of France that hasn't rained, and according to Andy Schleck, 2.5 months. Then they get this day where it's just a complete downpour. and crashes. That's gonna happen, right? When you're on these back roads and cars that aren't maintained and grease and diesel dripping everywhere. But the plot thickens, right? And so George, by the way, too, the king of sources, all right? He's got more intel and inside sources in the peloton, outside of the peloton, at the tour. Somebody sneaks him a WhatsApp yesterday with...
That is correct. Not only do I love all of our listeners here, but it turns out a lot of the riders are listening to us. And,
which I think is so dope.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things to hear. And I'm hearing from old connections, old friends, old teammates, and new friends that we're making just because of the show. And one of the most prominent riders in the peloton on one of the biggest teams reached out yesterday, and he's convinced it was because of the publicity caravan. One of the cars was soap, and it was spraying soap all over the roads. He confirmed that he rides those roads all the time in the rain and the dry, and they've never, ever been that slick. He said it was, and I quote, he said the roads were like ice.
He's like, why would they be spraying soap? It's a detergent company.
So they were spraying soap ahead of the riders, and he was pretty convinced that that's why there were so many crashes. The roads were incredibly slick, and we got some pictures. We got one picture that kind of shows the foamy stuff on the road where there was an actual big crash.
Because there, yes, I mean,
there you go. Look at that.
Here we go.
You can see the streaks on the road. I mean, look at that. That's not even a turn. That's a little bend in the road, and these guys are sliding out. So,
and there was a lot of stuff on Twitter, et cetera, with photos of the soap sponsor spraying the soap suds. There was some question about whether or not that was from this year or from last year. So we don't want to bring those up if it's not in fact the case. That photo was from yesterday, and according to George's, almost said the guy's name. That would have been good. Be like, why is he not starting today? Because he's talking to THEMOVE. So it look again. We talk about this all the time on the move. Nothing surprises me anymore in cycling. This shit is just so amateur hour. Like, you cannot have that happen. I mean, and again, who pays at the end of the day for all of these things? Every time we talk about this, who suffers? It's the right. And I'm not talking about suffering on the climbs. I'm talking about just the consequences with no voice, with no recourse. It's the rider.
And we're lucky no one sustained a serious injury that we know of, or it could have been
there was
killed.
A rider on McLaren who broke his femur.
I mean, there was, Philippe Gilbert, a good friend of mine, he's out. Obviously, one of the best riders in the Tour de France. He's out with a broken kneecap. I mean, there's serious consequences to actions like that. I mean, I was talking to Matt Kenseth last night, who had a huge wreck in the NASCAR race, and our good buddy Jimmy Johnson got taken out. And even those guys are shocked what's going on in our sport. I mean, like Lance said, we need a stronger voice. You saw what's recently happening in tennis. They're starting their own new union, stronger union. I know this is going down another rabbit hole we probably don't want to address today. We want to talk about the Tour de France, but
well, I got to add something to that. As we're watching the NASCAR race last night, and they're all bunched up in the last 8 laps, and George is cringing at how he's going, look how close they are together. And Bolch and I, who's on our crew, we look at him and go, dude, what you had done your whole career is far more dangerous than,
it's scary
than
to
what
watch.
Those guys are doing.
It's funny you say that. Jimmy's, and we're going to try to get Jimmy on the show one day this week, hopefully. But he always says to me, he'd much prefer to crash in that car than in Lycra.
Yeah, they've got all kinds of protective gear. But anyway, it's just funny that made you so uncomfortable.
Special shout out to Jimmy, the 48 car, because that crash actually, this is his last season. He's won 7 championships. He dearly and really truly wanted to win an 8th to break the record. That one crash knocked, but by the way, with Kenseth, who's probably his closest friend on the grid, knocked him out of the playoffs. So he will not have the chance to win the 8th, which totally sucks. But I tweeted it last night, like, to watch him go around and to congratulate the winner, go back to his old crew chief, Chad Knaus. Dude, that's I wouldn't have done that. I'd have been like, fuck y'all.
We all know that.
No, I know. I mean, that was class. I mean, and so Jimmy is a class guy, and man, it was just sort of, as we were watching the race, I think we were all just sitting there stunned in silence and like, oh no. And he was on, right there on the bubble, but was running good towards the end of the race anyhow. Class guy, and let's get him in here. He's a big bike rider, folks, by the way. But y'all probably knew that. some point, I think there's going to be. There's the man. There's the man.
And a lot of those guys. I rode with him at Daytona, and a bunch of the drivers and a lot of their crew are traveling with road bikes.
Yep.
And they do a big group ride.
Yep. Well, he's the strongest of all of them. So that's. I've gotten a lot of criticism and grief and ribbing about the fanny pack. At some point in the show, I'll give and there's been high demand for just how the setup works between the fanny pack, the phone, the cable, ear system. I will explain everything. And as you see, I'm already sort of half prepared to show it off. But
your whole setup reminds me a lot of what you just mentioned, the flip phone. So.
Maybe I should have a flip phone in here.
You should.
That might complete the whole get up.
I think you need the visor with the colored plastic.
Yeah.
To finish out the.
All right. Well, we're going. Let's talk about stage 2. It didn't disappoint. I loved watching. Look, the sun came out, so we were able, as fans and viewers, to really appreciate the beauty of the south of France. And and again, I've told y'all, I lived there my whole career. When people think about the south of France, they really think about sort of Cannes, Nice, Monaco, that what they call the Bord de Mer, the seafront, all these famous towns and fancy hotels and fancy cars and fancy restaurants. If you just get 2 or 3 miles in, dude, it is completely rugged, and it showed off today. The descent of the Turini, it looked like a video game. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was absolutely stunning. And if anybody's sitting at home, and once we get out of this damn pandemic, I tell you, that's the place to go take a bike trip. Those are the best roads in the world. I get asked all the time, if you could go ride anywhere, where would you go? And it's always the south of France. And you got to get away from the coast because there's a lot of cars. As soon as you get inland, nobody.
There was rumblings this morning about perhaps filming the show in southern France next year. I know the wives would love that, but might be a bit challenging. It would be fun, though.
Might be, but hey.
But while you're talking about those roads, I couldn't help but notice almost every time they cut to it, and I know you've both ridden those roads a lot, and you lived right there, but it's not only the hairpin turns on a descent, but a huge retaining wall. Like, there's no give.
Right.
Stone retaining walls. I just saw it all day throughout that part of France.
Well, those roads were probably built, pushing a century ago. The first phases of them, and so that's the way they did it back then. But it is just gorgeous.
They weren't built for bike races, but there are some amazing roads to train on, and as you see, most of the top guys live down there for that reason.
Yeah. Quick shout out to George Hincapie. His prediction came true. Alaphilippe won the stage, takes the yellow jersey. I didn't know, but apparently his father passed away recently, so you saw him emotional. At least that's what they were saying on TV. You saw him emotional at the finish line. But yeah, George, congratulations.
We're going to break down. I'd like to break down the finish towards the end of this show, but I think we need to hit on what happened early with the breakaway.
Right. I was trying to get there.
Many times we see this where we wake up in the morning, the breakaway is established, but as you and I know, that's like an incredibly difficult task just to get in the breakaway. You saw today some of the top guys in the bunch. Tom Skujin's an ex-team rider of mine. Peter Sagan. They're really legit strong guys, which indicates how hard it actually was to make that breakaway. So can't leave that out of the mix.
No, and I am now, as I have said every day, I'm a huge Sagan fan. I'm now worried. I'm going on the record. I noticed something today, and if you go back and rewatch the footage, he doesn't. This sounds corny or too simple, but he's not sitting on the bike right. And as I think back to my career, I remember guys as they got older. I'm not saying Peter's getting older, but he is slightly older. As they get older, they just start to sit on the bike wrong, and they start to kind of creep and crab to one side. I remember Jalabert at the end of his career. I mean, he was basically sitting sideways on the bike seat, and I'm like, dude, it may be time to stop. But he was something wasn't right either.
He looked off today, but I mean, this is one of the guys that I don't know if you've seen his training videos. The guy's a gym training phenom. I mean, the stuff he does in the gym is pretty incredible. So I'm hoping it was just a bad day today. But who knows? Also, he might have just tried to get in the breakaway to have an easy ride at the end. I mean, those guys.
This is not.
But I think what you're saying, and he's 30, by the way. I think what I'm hearing from you is it's like, this was not just a today signs of how he's riding. This is a getting older, losing form.
Yeah,
thing.
we've seen this and it happens, right? You guys just you just get up there, and not that you get old or you lose everything, but look, we're going to talk at the end of the show about this young generation. That is not a breakaway that the normal or the real Peter Sagan gets dropped from. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't get dropped from that group ever. And so, I mean, in fact, I had him making it over those climbs with the front group, staying in the peloton, making it. And the old Peter Sagan, or the one that that was so dominant 3 or 4 years ago, he makes it over in that group, no problem.
I'm going back to what I said early on when we were doing the July shows is all these guys react differently from training. Some guys need more racing than training. Some guys can pull it off by just training. I think Peter Sagan's one of those guys that needs a ton of racing, and he's going to just get hopefully better throughout this Tour de France.
Well, time will tell. Time will tell. But George, congratulations. It was. Let's just jump into, because I think we have now, and we've talked about it on here before, this generation of, call it 24 and under, right? Yeah. And it's so funny because in cycling, they call it under 23. So you just sort of, that used to be, in our day, that would have been amateur, and then you turn pro. I mean, we've made a list of these guys that are, let's just call it under 24, and we have to add a name to that list today. I mean, this Swiss kid, Matt Hershey, Mark Hershey.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never heard of this guy. I mean, did you see him cover that move? He covered that move with the fingers in his nose.
Yeah, no, the way he bridged up to that move was, well, just bridging up to Alaphilippe was very impressive. And
by the way, he's not a Panakukin. He was the U23 world champion.
Yep.
So that's, he's got a palmares. But you go between Bernal, Pogacar, MVP, Remco, Carapaz. Folks, this is cool for the future of cycling.
Yeah, agreed. There's a lot of young guys coming up there that are racing like they've been pros for forever. And I mean, today I think we should start from like right before the Col d'Ez, which you and I have done a ton of times. You used to live right by there or on that climb.
Yep.
But you saw a lot of the different tactics going on with Jumbo-Visma taking control early on, setting a big pace there. And Ineos, I think there's sort of a mental battle going on to show who's stronger, who can control the race better. And they're racing so aggressive. I mean, we've actually heard that some of these guys, some of these teams are racing as if the Tour de France was going to be 9 days long. In case, hopefully not. I mean,
hang on. I mean, you don't just brush over that, because you brought it up today and again, you can choose or not choose to name your sources, but you brought this up when we were watching the stage. I said, what the fuck? What are you talking about? This is because that's a.
I mean, and they actually mentioned
that's a serious statement.
Yeah, I've heard rumblings about it, and like I said, knock on wood, we hope it doesn't happen. But if the race does get canceled after 9 days or 10 days, the person leading at that day is declared the winner of the Tour de France.
You're suggesting that if there's too many COVID outbreaks within the peloton.
Yeah.
Because there's a whole round of testing on the first rest day.
Yes, correct. So we're hoping that does not happen. I'd hate to see that happen, because this is going to be one of the most exciting Tour de France's we've seen in a long time. So
on the heels of last year, it ending early with Bernal getting it without.
But again, back up. But you're hearing this from somebody on the inside that is actually talking about the way they're choosing to race this race early on, because the general, or at least maybe the general consensus, is that this thing gets stopped. And again, let's not pull the fire alarm yet, or even put our hand on the fire alarm, but that would change the way that you would race the first week of the Tour if you thought.
Absolutely. You're seeing, I mean, why else would a team like Jumbo spend so much energy in the front, Ineos going to the front in times where it would be not as important in a 3-week race? It doesn't seem like they're holding back right now as much as they would normally in such a hard Tour de France.
Well, but if it does not get, and fingers crossed that it doesn't, but if it continues on, then the third week is just going to be Armageddon.
Yeah.
For everybody.
For everybody.
Yeah. I mean, already it was
regardless, it's going to be Armageddon. Big day for the Americans, in my opinion, today. We saw TJ, which you don't love seeing him doing the work early on before the Col d'Ez, but put it out there all on the line for the EF education team. Then Nielsen Palace does an awesome attack at the bottom of the Col d'Ez in his first Tour de France. Not scared, obviously. Super cool to see that. And Sepp Kuss setting the pace near the top of the Col d'Ez. I mean, and unfortunately, I think he was taken out by that crash, but incredible riding by the Americans, and I think we're going to see a lot of.
He wasn't even talking about fingers in the nose. Sepp Kuss, this kid was. I was like, is he even trying? Like, he looks so good.
Yeah, he looks so good. He's got a great head on his shoulders, and I think one of the best talents we've seen coming out of America in a while.
And just so you know, to just to prove a point with you, George, yesterday. So George Bennett actually lost time today.
Yep.
So your whole idea that you had for him yesterday is no longer an idea.
No, that was an idea, and the reason he lost time today was because he was dead from all the crashes yesterday.
And why? Because he crashed again yesterday.
Yes.
We don't need to go around and around about this, but
I was going to ask you guys what it's like for 20, 21. Yeah, it depends on if they're real age or race age, right? But Mark Hirschi, just put yourself in that place, being that young, and you're looking to your right and left, and it's Yates and Alaphilippe. You probably got to be going, holy shit.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
That's a big moment for him. That's one of those moments where you just kind of pinch yourself. But speaking of looking right and left, he should have looked left when he was looking right, because that's when he lost the wheel with Alaphilippe. He's not slow. Clearly, he was starting to come around him, but he got gapped off when Alaphilippe started the sprint.
Yeah, which was a big
and also
mistake.
was misgeared, and so he just split second just missed Alaphilippe's acceleration, and that was what cost him the race.
Well,
that would have been a big story.
Yeah, that would have been.
I mean, you're a young Swiss kid.
Well, he's fast. I mean, he won the.
You go beat Alaphilippe, get your first. I mean, that would have. Imagine that. Talk about pinch yourself.
But on the same breath, I mean, Alaphilippe had all the pressure in that sprint, and for him to have that composure, pull off the win by a couple centimeters is just incredibly impressive. Not only that, but Adam Yates had an amazing ride today. He bridged up to that breakaway, fingers in the nose. I think they had about 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Caught them within a couple hundred meters.
Immediately.
I don't know if you noticed in the Dauphiné, he wasn't riding that well, and I kind of had the feeling where he was holding back. So I did reach out to another one of my sources, and he was sick before the Dauphiné, so they told him not to push himself too much to the Dauphiné, which turns out was a great idea because he's on crazy good form right now and rode away from everybody on that climb today and did an incredible ride. So we're going to see a lot more from him in the next few stages.
At some point, in my next life, I want to come back with as many friends as George has. He has this.
There's a reason you have me on here, right? I'm so proud of you that you have accumulated so many friends that tell you so many inside baseball things. I don't have that.
Could you manage all the text and calls?
Hey, y'all, keep sliding into my DMs, all right? I love it.
And you know what? I do too. I do too. Let's take care of a skosh more business before we keep going here. Today's show also brought to you by Amp Human. So this is the PR lotion, and this shit, I'm telling you, absolutely works. Funny enough, the first person who ever brought me PR lotion was Jimmy Johnson. He brought it over and he said, these guys make, and this is early days, they make this bicarbonate cream. And I said, that can't work. There's no way. Well, guess what? I was totally wrong. I mean, this company, and anybody that's ever used PR lotion will attest. You've got teams in the Super Bowl using it, teams in the Stanley Cup. When Kipchoge ran 159, he used it. The last 3 winners of the Tour used it. It absolutely works. This is the new formulation, much sort of thinner and more like a body lotion. The other cool thing is they just got a government grant, actually 3 government grants for $1.5 million from the Department of Defense, the Air Force. I mean, those guys and gals aren't throwing around grant money to people that have things that don't work. Really, really proud of this team at AMP. Head on over to amphuman.com/TheMove. Use the buy code TheMove25 for 25% off your next purchase. And there's also the flow code. Last one of the day. And this, I just have to open up and show. George, we talk about the feed, right? We talk about how in bike races, riders curate their feed bag, what bar they want, what drinks they want, whatever they want. The feed came along, and this is one of these we always joke, like, why the hell didn't we invent this, right? Like, we should have invented this idea as a company, as a product, as a platform. And so the cool thing, and so they've got they've got the tour pack, and they're calling it the tour pack. So they sent me the tour pack, and I just have to read it. So, and this is amazing. So this is the tour pack, but it actually says something in there special for me, talking about having friends. It says, "Hi, Lance and the Move team. Enjoy our 2020 Tour de France box. Lance, everything in the big box is to help you kick George's ass this year on the mountain bike. Love the feed." I mean, is that?
You gotta love that.
See, they did not send you one of those.
Yeah, the feed did send me a bunch of immune stuff early in the year for myself and my children, which was I'm very appreciative of. So thank you guys at the feed, Team Feed.
10% off if you want the tour box. Head on over to thefeed.com. The buy code is THEMOVE. There's the flow code if you want to make it easy for yourself. And yeah, see, I got friends. I got friends. Well, should we talk about tomorrow? Should we? What else? Or should I give a demonstration on the fanny pack before we get into tomorrow?
Do that. Save that for last.
Save it for last. Okay, we'll save it.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
we'll save that for last.
Yeah, I think we can touch a bit more on that actual sprint, where they're coming onto the, they have 20 seconds. The peloton is raging on. I mean, the guys within the actual team car were telling me that they didn't think they'd make it because of the headwind. You didn't think they'd make it because of the big roads coming in. But they worked together really well. And with a K to go, they kind of stopped working together, looking at each other. Adam Yates even said in the interview that he knew there was no chance to beat Alaphilippe. But Hershey, I mean, he had a great chance of winning and rode with confidence and just made that tiny mistake where he gave about a 10 foot gap from Alaphilippe, and that's all Alaphilippe needed to take advantage of that and take the win.
And wasn't in the right gear.
And wasn't in the right
saw
gear.
him.
I mean, it was, but he came with speed. So had he been a bit more alert, I mean, he definitely had a good chance of winning that sprint. So
this
quite
is the
impressive.
guy we have to watch now. We put him on our list. All right, Mark Hershey. All right, you're on our list now, buddy. That's a big deal.
On the list.
And tomorrow,
2 seconds. I mean, just 2 seconds, right?
Yep.
So they had 20. I think the most they had was 21 seconds.
21 seconds at
At
the
that
top.
point, you're thinking yes, and George was fully confident. But they're always going to cat and mouse at the end. There's always going to be that strategery, as W once said. But
it was Yates
2
that
seconds.
nipped him at the bonus just before that.
At the top, which
Impressive.
Going back a bit too, I do want to address the crash on the last climb. I mean, super tough moment of the race. My boy, my pick for the overall win, Dumoulin, gets taken out by Kwiatkowski. Still is able to come back and catch the group and finish in the first group.
came back easy.
Came back easy, which was quite impressive to see. I mean, that is about as hard as it gets to come back after a crash like that. And we were discussing earlier before the show started which of the GC favorites did not make that first group, and pretty much everybody made it. I mean, when Martinez didn't make it, he had a big crash coming down the Col d'Ez. Unfortunately, caught back up right before the final climb, but that's a big effort to come back there at that moment, and paid for it dearly on the last climb.
Couldn't help but notice that Thibaut Pinot was suffering. I mean, if there were 30,
Was
40
he there?
guys,
Yeah,
he
he's
was
still there.
He was still there, but
But he has that expression always.
yeah, but he was in the last quartile of that group. He was he paid today for yesterday's carnage, and you just don't know what the residual effect is, but he did not look good.
And now we're back to Alaphilippe in the yellow jersey, and he could be there.
Which,
quite a while.
I want to know from you guys, what we saw with Alaphilippe last year, just denied everybody again and again and again, staying in yellow. Tomorrow's a tough day, which you guys can break down. Can he stay in yellow for a while? And add to that George's theory of people thinking of it as a 9-day race.
Yeah. No, my view is they're going to, like they did last year, they'll do everything they can to protect that jersey. In light of what George said, there's some other things, and I don't want to go down this rabbit hole because I fucking hate this in cycling, but there's other things going on with that team. There's other rumors and innuendo and speculation and stop there. They will want to bury that, right? Keeping that yellow jersey, that will bury it. So, yes, they are going to fight and try his best to keep the yellow jersey, I think.
And I know you guys are going to go over this with Johan later on your show and La Movida. But tomorrow typically would be a huge breakaway day because it's such a hard day to control for one team. But we have so many limited sprint stages that I could see the sprint teams collaborating tomorrow and helping control the whole day. And there's such a long way between the last climb and the finish with a big flat run in that we're going to see a lot of collaborations amongst the sprint team to make it a sprint finish. So can I go ahead and give my pick first again, or
Sure.
since I already got today's pick, I'm going to go with Nizzolo for tomorrow.
I'm taking a break from picking people, but what I will tell you is they had 11,000 feet of climbing today. They got 8,300 feet tomorrow, so that's a hard day. And by the way, it's a long day, 198 kilometers. The following day, they've got almost 10,000 feet. This is going to be so epic. And maybe we didn't appreciate it when we talked about it months ago, but this is going to be interesting. So, but yeah, I mean, but watch this. I mean, they're going to keep this thing. These sprint teams will keep it together, and then all of a sudden, Wout van Aert's going to come through and say, "Thank you very much. See you in the douches."
So that's your pick.
Sure.
All right, you got it. I'll have to get Johan's pick later.
You'll have to tune in to the following show to get Johan's take on it and whether it'll be a breakaway or a sprint. If the sprinters will control it, like you think.
I think they're going to definitely control it.
Okay. We ready for the fanny pack?
I think we're ready.
So I got a lot of grief about the fanny pack. And it's just, you get older and it's just, you don't give a shit anymore about what you look like or what people say, or it's all about convenience. By the way, I was moving my daughter into her dorm at the University of Colorado with all the other powder dudes.
You didn't have any pockets?
Dude, but then that weights you down. Like, I just like my shorts. I like my shorts to just be shorts. And I don't care what you think, George. I don't care what Matt McGinty said. I don't care what anybody on Instagram says
when
about
the
me.
cargo shorts went out of fashion, that was devastating to dads everywhere.
And here's the thing. And just to touch on the cables, like the cable, like I have these cans on right now, so I can't do it. But when it's in there, the AirPods, for starters, I have a pair of AirPods. They're really annoying to the person on the other end. So me being the respectful person that I am to everybody else in the world, I want it to be a good experience.
News to me.
Other end of the phone call. But also when I'm just got my playlist going, they got this thing and you just the little double tap. And I got shit for doing the Snowmass 50 the other day with these on. But when I'm hammering on the single track, it's easier to skip tracks with this double tap. So here's what I do. So I've got the fanny pack.
Oh my goodness.
I've got the phone in my fanny pack, and I have I won't show you what I have in here. I mean, I don't know. I got my wallet. I've got some chapstick.
Some Bengay.
I've got and then it's just here, and that's all you got to do. I mean, this is. I'm telling you, y'all can laugh all you want. If you just try it once, you will never go back. Okay. Now, who the fuck rigged this picture up? Okay, this is not nice. And by the way, if I would have no problem wearing a shoulder thing like that, but the fanny pack.
I prefer the shoulder purse, the man purse.
For those listening who didn't see that was from Hangover with the satchel. He's saying, and that's from our friend Sean and Tennille Moore out of Florida.
Yeah. Thank you, Sean. But here's the thing, just so you all know, and this is the last thing I'm going to say about it. I actually look cool there. I'm for sure the best looking one there.
Yes.
But
I got
that's what happens when you get to be Bradley Cooper in the back. But when I posted that picture with Grace on Instagram, no part of me thought, this is where I am at in my life. No part of me thought, oh no, I've got a fanny pack on. I've got the cables. I'm going to look like a geek. That never even crossed my mind. I don't give a shit. I'm all about convenience and moving through my day as seamlessly as possible and fucking buying low and selling high.
Well, we care about you. That's why we had to point it out. We care about you, bro.
I appreciate that. All right. Well, good weather. As I said, good weather in Cicerone. So I love talking about weather just because I think it affects so many things. But anything else?
Absolutely. This tour has not disappointed so far. It's been full of action, and I think we're going to continue to see more and more of that, and super excited already for tomorrow's stage.
And the deeper we get into the tour, the more Johan's tactics come into play.
Yep.
If you want to catch that show as well, it's in the same feed as the Move feed, wherever you get your podcast.
The greatest mind that ever looked or reflected or talked about this sport. So head on over to his show, and then he does it again in Spanish with our old teammate Victor Hugo Peña, El Tiburón, La Movida. So thanks for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you or talking to y'all, seeing y'all, whatever. By the way, our members are seeing us. That's the best part. Also, I mean, the members got a live version of me showing how to do the fanny pack. That is a big deal. Sign up. I mean, it is a big damn deal. All right. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, guys.